Welcome to the Note Nuggets podcast, where you can learn how to become the bank, build wealth, and accumulate streams of income perfect for your savings or IRAs. You'll hear from industry experts, seasoned veterans, and everyday investors. Our goal is to teach you how to invest in notes, one nugget of knowledge at a time. Here's your host, Kevin Galang.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Note Nuggets podcast, where you learn how to turn other people's debt into income for your savings or IRA. This is the first episode of 2021, so happy New Year. With the new year, it can be a good time for resolutions or new goals that you want to set and accomplish for the year. If you're new to notes, welcome to the wonderful world of note investing. Pat yourself on the back because you're taking action towards learning something new, like how to create cash flow and build wealth through other people's debt. If you're an experienced note investor, welcome to the Note Nugget podcast. I hope that you're able to learn something new from these bite-sized nuggets of knowledge about our awesome niche of being the bank. Before we dive into this week's Note Nugget, let's briefly talk about goals. I think goals are hugely important for success in anything you do. They give you a sense of direction, a purpose, and allow you to measure your progress towards whatever it is you're trying to achieve. The worst thing to do is to try and meander your way through success. Just wandering aimlessly is not very good. It would be like if someone dropped you in the middle of the ocean in a rowboat without any maps or GPS and said, "Good luck, find your way home." Will you get home? I mean, there's a possibility you could get home, but most likely you won't succeed in finding your way to shore, really. Investing in notes or any asset class without a goal in mind is a quick way to do a whole lot and feel like you didn't accomplish anything. Trust me, I definitely know what that feels like. When it comes to goals, I have two goals that I want to share with you for this year. For this podcast, my goal is to have 50 reviews by 2021. Now, if you want to take 30 seconds to leave me a review right now, head over to notenuggets.com/review, and it will walk you through exactly how you can do that. This will help me greatly by increasing the exposure and getting more people to listen to the Note Nugget podcast. So thank you for taking your time and doing that. Now, for my note investing business, my goal this year is to purchase 25 notes through partnerships. I break this down further as 5 partial notes, 10 performing notes, and 10 non-performing notes. Partial notes are, yes, technically performing notes, but it's more specific to just buying an entire performing note. For reference, I currently have 5 notes, 3 performing notes in my self-directed IRA, 1 performing note that's not in my IRA, and 1 non-performing note. So I'm really looking to 5x my note business in 2021. All about growth this year, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to goals, some people like to keep their goals to themselves, and that's absolutely fine. The reason I don't mind sharing my goals is because I believe that by sharing my goals, I can help inspire someone to create a similar goal or even a goal that's greater than mine. By all means, I'm all about helping other people become successful. Additionally, I never know who might be listening to the episode and say, "Hey, you know what? I have some notes for sale. Let me reach out to Kevin and see if he'd be interested in them." And if they're not selling the notes, maybe somebody in their network is. It really is a great way to kind of amplify my efforts by putting it out there. First and foremost, I'm definitely not an expert in goal setting, and there are tons of valuable books, podcasts, and blog posts about the best ways to set them. My only piece of advice is to make your goals yours. Try and not let them be influenced by external things. Really have these goals mean something to you. Maybe 25 notes for you in 2021 is too daunting. Then make it 2 notes. Maybe 25 notes is too small for you. Make it 250. Your goal could even be something like listen to all of the Note Nuggets podcast episodes in 2 weeks, which is very doable. Or maybe it's to introduce yourself to 5 note investors you found on LinkedIn. Chat with them over Zoom or meet them in person, whatever it may be to establish a relationship with them. Now, whatever your goals are, be sure to set them and give them your best shot. All right, enough about goals. I could talk about personal development and stuff like that all day. It's a fun little passion thing of mine. But we're here to talk about note investing. So for this week's Note Nugget, let's talk about the 3 reasons why investors choose to invest in notes. What's interesting about note investing is that a lot of experienced investors end up in notes later on in their investing careers. Some will say that they accidentally ended up with a note, while others say they were tired of owning rentals. So the first reason investors turn to notes is from being the landlord to becoming the lender. Landlords have to deal with things like maintenance issues, major repairs, and tenant turnover. Sure, you could hire a property manager to do all of this, but then you'll have to pay for that quality team member, which could eat away at your profits. As the lender, you don't have to worry about maintenance or repairs. If the light bulbs burn out, the toilets clog, there's rodents, anything like that, the borrower isn't calling up the person or business that collects their mortgage. They're not calling up Wells Fargo and saying, hey, can you help me with my leaky roof? That doesn't happen. All of the burdens of landlording fall on the borrower because the borrower is the homeowner. And when it comes to tenant turnover, you're less likely to even experience that because the borrower is not a tenant. The borrower is a homeowner. Tenants who rent know they're living there for a temporary amount of time. They may either buy a place to own something of their own, or they may go rent somewhere else. Either way, it's a temporary thing. They're usually not expecting to be there forever. For a homeowner, they're usually going to be in the home for a longer period of time. Currently, the average time is about 5 to 7 years for a homeowner. So as you can see, you're not really having to turn tenants over like you would. You're not having to turn borrowers over like you would tenants. And when these homeowners sell, the lender gets made whole. So you're really only having one borrower at a time. There's not really any turnover that you're experiencing. So instead of being a landlord, these experienced investors turn to becoming the lender. Now, the second reason investors choose notes is because of how passive performing notes can be. With a performing note, which is a note where the borrower is making their monthly mortgage payments, there is nothing to do other than collect the check. All the due diligence was done up front, and you can sit back and relax. It doesn't even require a system to be passive. As long as the borrower pays you their monthly mortgage, you get paid. It's that easy, and it really is that passive. Now, the last reason why investors choose notes as an asset is how creative you can get with them. When it comes to note investing, you can buy a performing note like we mentioned earlier, but there are two other options you can choose from as a note investor. You can buy a non-performing note where the borrower is not making their monthly mortgage payments, or you can originate a new note. When buying a non-performing note, you're taking on the risk that the borrower is not paying, but you'll be able to exit the note and make a profit. In those situations, a lender has many creative ways to create a win-win for the borrower and for their investors. For example, the lender can decrease a borrower's monthly payment to make it more affordable for them. The lender could take the late fees and accrued interest over, however long the borrower has not been paying to create a new note with the borrower that sets them up for success and allows them to keep their home. The lender can take back the property from the borrower without actually having to go through the foreclosure process, which could hurt the borrower's credit. So these are just some examples, which is the tip of the iceberg of different ways that a lender can get creative when it comes to non-performing notes. We could probably do, and we probably will do, an entire episode on the different types of exits that you can use as a non-performing note investor. When it comes to originating a note, specifically if you're working with an investor and it is a non-owner occupied note, the terms can be almost anything the two parties agree upon. And I say non-owner occupied and you're working with an investor because residential notes and mortgages do have some particular rules and regulations that need to be followed so that there's not any predatory lending on the borrower. For example, one of my notes in my IRA is not secured by a property. It's secured by a couple of work trucks where the borrower has recently taken one of the older trucks and replaced it with a newer truck so that my risk as a lender is still as good as it was when we first originated the note because, trucks and cars are depreciating assets. That note is an interest-only note, meaning I get one annual interest payment each year, and then my entire principal gets paid back after 5 years. And if the borrower does not pay the entire principal or they miss their payment, I can take action and take those work trucks and sell them for a profit. I've heard of other examples where investors throw in additional properties, what we call cross-collateralizing, to increase the security that they have when loaning out money. Maybe they were originally going to secure it by this property, but it turns out the borrower has additional rentals. You can set up terms such that you are even more protected as the lender. Then there's investors who will originate a new note and then sell a portion of that newly originated note so that they can recoup their initial cash investment while getting cash flow later on the back end of that note. These are also known as partials. And there are many more ways you can get creative with notes. And that's really the beauty of the niche of note investing. For those three reasons, these are the most common reasons that I've seen for investors to turn to becoming the bank. Of course, there's more than 3 reasons out there, but these are the most common ones that I've come across. If you want to learn more about note investing, check out my free note investing ebook at notenuggets.com/ebook and subscribe to the show. Lastly, if you enjoy the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, and you can get those instructions on how to leave a review at notenuggets.com/review. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Note Nuggets podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get access to additional weekly value nuggets and get notified with episode updates. To subscribe, all you have to do is head over to subscribe.notenuggets.com. If you have any questions about this episode or note investing, book a time on Kevin's calendar at contact.notenuggets.com. We'll see you next week with another note nugget to add to your tool belt.